Hey guys, it's me Simon, and as promised this is a little update video about the Masamune project that I'm working on, and I made a video about it, I don't know, a month or two ago. And what I'm going to show you today is the shopping user interface that I developed the last couple of days. And yeah, here let me show you quick the demonstration, what is currently possible. So before there was already, of course, the interaction with the NPCs, there was the dialogue functionality. I'm not sure if I showed all of that. There are some triggers, quests already in the background and things like that. The map transition, which I also updated a little bit, because before certain game objects, like for example this tree, they were part of the tiled map itself, and therefore the ordering when they are rendered. So for example, like when I'm in front of the tree, then the player is rendered in front of the tree, and when I'm in the back of the tree, then the tree is actually in front of it. So there needs to be some sorting of how things are rendered. And yeah, before the tree was part of the tiled map, and now it's a real game object. And with my map transition effect here, I think I showed that also last time, those are actually two separate tiled maps, which are loaded and then just rendered with a little offset and things like that. And there was a little bit of work to do to also make the game objects appear correctly, because you also have a physics body and things like that. But that is now also solved. So that is one of the things which is now working. And the second thing is the shop interface, which I was working on now. And there are two NPCs currently. There's this merchant NPC and there's also the smith. You can talk to them, and one of the options is that you can trade with them. And in the user interface, you have then the name of the shop at the top left. Then you will have the different playable characters. Currently it's just one, and I don't know, I think I will add a second one. I have an idea for a second character, but right now it's just one character, where you see then the different attributes that he has. Then this is like the gold, I call it talents in this game, because I did not like gold or chill or whatever. So that's why it's talents in this one. And we have currently 100 of those. And at the top right, you have the different options depending on what the shop offers on items. So the smith, for example, currently only allows you, or he just has armor items. That's why you can only select the armor category. And then you see the different items that he has available. And at the bottom right, you have then also some information like the graphic of the item, the title, which you also see on the left side, and some description text, which is slowly appearing similar to the dialogue stuff. Then you also see how much it costs. So for example, the boots are 150, the helmet is 150, and how much of those you have currently selected. So we only have 100 gold and everything here costs 150, so we cannot select anything. One additional thing, it also shows you if a specific gear or item is better than the one that you are currently wearing. So you see here the boots, for example, would increase our armor by 1. Same for the helmet. He would also increase our armor by 1. So from 0 it would go to 1. So there's some difference calculated, and it shows you then how much better it is if you would buy that item and equip it. Okay, then let me quickly go to the other shop, which would be the merchant. Do you say merchant or merchant? I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. Let's trade here, because he has no armor, no weapons, no nothing. So he just has items. And when we go into this category, currently he only sells a small mana potion. And there, for example, you can now see, so I can select up to 5 mana potions. And here you see the total cost of the items that you have selected. It's like a shopping cart or so on. You can select different items. I showed it also in the shop test in a moment. And yeah, so you can deselect certain items down to 0, which means you don't buy anything of those. And you can go up depending on how much talents you have available. So for example, let's buy 3 of those. There will be a little pop-up if you really want to buy it or not. And yeah, when you buy it, it crashes, which is interesting. So there seems to be a bug, which I need to check. Okay. I think I forgot to add there something special. I remember what I need to do. But yeah, let me quickly show it to you in the shopping test. Nice that we had this live demonstration. So this is the shop UI test that I used for developing here. You see we have a lot more options here. We have a weapon, we have the armor category, we have accessories, we have normal items, and then we can also sell items. And for example, here I made a little demonstration. If something would be worse, so if it decreases your current attributes, you would also see that here. So for example, this specific sword, it would decrease your agility by 2, but still increases your intelligence by 1 and your attack by +3. And yeah, let's just buy, for example, 2 of these swords, and let's also, I don't know, buy 3 of these helmets. And with that, we can then also go to the sell category, where you see that all the items that you have in your inventory, which are the swords that we just bought before and the different helmets. And then similar to buying items, you can here select now how many of the items you want to sell. Of course, you cannot go over the maximum. So we bought 2 of the swords and 3 of the helmets. And again, it's a similar pop-up. So when we click here something in the sell category, it asks if we really want to sell the items. If you say no, then of course it doesn't sell it. If you say yes, then it sells it. So they disappear here. And we have our 500 talents back, which is the one that we started with. So yeah, this is the shop interface that I was working on. And it was actually quite some complex task, I would say, to do, because there is a lot of tiny little things to consider, like especially the layout we've seen 2D, but then also with selecting, deselecting items, that you cannot go below 0, that you cannot go over the amount of talents that you have available. So it's nothing super crazy or super complicated, but still took me quite some time to implement that correctly with this view model and view approach that I also used in the tutorial. So I think it's called the MVVM pattern, model view model pattern. Here, by the way, I found something out. So in the tutorial, we had a property notifier class. I think I called it like that, which had basically this piece of information. I think up, down here. It had this piece of information there. So basically, when you have a view model, like for example, the shop view model, you can register certain attributes or fields of that class with a specific method. In this case, I called it propertyNotify. And then whenever the value of this attribute changes, then it will trigger some notification to the different views which are listening to changes of that attribute. So if you would go to the shop view, there is always a method which I called register on property changes. And for example here, so we have the view model, and when the property of the player talent, so the gold, is changing, then it executes this little function here. So we get in the value of the current value of the property that we are listening to, and then we can do something with it. Like in that case, we update the text in the user interface. And I found out that Kotlin actually has here certain built-in functionality already, which makes it way easier and shorter to create this view model than what I did in the tutorial. And the first thing is here this read-write property. That's a special built-in Kotlin class for a read-only property. In this case, it's not a read-only property, it's a read-write property, as the name suggests. There would also be the read-only property. And yeah, this basically returns something special, where you can also, with the built-in delegates class of Kotlin, make it then an observable property, so delegates.observable, and then you just write the function or do what should happen when the value of that specific property changes. And again, in the tutorial, I made, I think, 2 separate classes here with a couple of methods. And in the end, it was then way more simpler because Kotlin has a lot of built-in stuff, which is pretty useful. And there I found out about this read-write property and also this delegate thing here. Yeah, besides that, what can I show? So maybe again, the trigger configurator. So I think I showed that also the last time. So how does, for example, let's go to the Smith. So how does the Smith shop work? So the trigger for the Smith that we saw before in the village is like this. So first of all, it opens this dialogue where he's saying something and gives you the different options if you want to trade with him or if you want to leave. And then this one here, I will optimize that in the future, that it's not index based, that it's easier to read. Basically, selected option index equals 0. Let me quickly open that again. Means that you selected the first option of the dialogue. And the first option of the dialogue, if we go here, would be that we want to trade with him. If we go to abort or leave, then nothing happens. But if we select the first option, which is trade here, then it opens this shop menu. So this is the selected option index 0. And then the trigger has a shop action now, where you pass in, first of all, the player entity or the entity which is triggering the shop. Then you have the shop entity itself. So that would be, in that case, the Smith, which gets triggered by the player. Then we need the title of the shop, which is just in English, it would be Smith. In German, it would be Schmied. So there's some internationalization going on in the background. That's why I have this internationalization key here. And then just simply a list of items that the shop should offer. And there is, again, just an enumeration of different item types. I can show that in a moment as well. You already see it. So this is automatically generated from tiled. And those are currently the different item types that I created, just some placeholder stuff. And yeah, so you just say, for example, the Smith in that case should have a shop where he sells boots and helmets, and that's it. Then the shop interface in the background gets updated. The options at the top right get calculated. So are those items armors or weapons or items or accessories, for example? Then you have the different options at the top right. And then you can buy them or sell items or simply leave. And that's it. There's one special thing. I think it's part of the view model, if I remember correctly. Yes, I think it's this one. Let me quickly check. Yes, it's this one. Because let me show that again in the game. I needed a feature, like for example, when I go to this small mana potion, it shows here that it restores 15 mana points. And this 15, I did not want to add that to the text, so hard code the text, because if I would update that value, let me also show you that in a moment. Then it makes more sense. So again, in tiled, I define all the different objects. And for example, the mana potion here, it has a status value of the mana for 15. And this 15 is what you saw before in the text. And if I would change that now to, for example, 20, let's try that out. Is that the correct object style set? I think so. Let's see. Hopefully it does work. I never tested that, but it should. Yeah, so now you see here 20. And the reason why this is working is that I did not hard code this number into the description of the mana potion. Instead, I thought about like some sort of string replacement functionality. And when we go to the messages for now, there somewhere I have the items, I think. Yes, item, then the small mana potion, and then the description. And there you see a potion that restores then a specific color. That's why it's written in blue. and then a special string. So percentage, something, something, percentage, and then the text again. And this one here, so this percentage stuff here, stat.mana, gets then replaced with the actual stat value. So the stats is a component of the entity in the background, and there it looks up the mana value and then replaces the text that we have seen here. So this stat.mana, it replaces it then with 15. So this is how it's working. And for that, I actually used something that I normally almost never use. And it's a regular expression where I learned something. I did not know about that before. But in regular expressions, to keep it very, very simple, you can write something like this. So if you want to find something in a string, which is a capital letter, and which occurs at least one time, then you would write something like this. So you have the brackets, A to C in capital letters, and then this plus, which would mean at least a capital letter must appear once to match that specific regular expression. So you see it here, we have the percentage, A to C something, something. There is, by the way, also a nice functionality in libgdx, in IntelliJ, where you can check the regular expression. So here, up there, you see the regular expression, and down there, you can now try out what kind of string it matches. And here we can see, so we have the percentage, then we have this A to C plus, so any text. Then we have a dot, then we have another A to C some text, and finally another percentage. So that's what this regular expression means. So here it matches that, for example. And in a regular expression, you can then also have groups, which I did not know. And a group is simply something that you put in those normal brackets here. So we have a group for the first text before the dot. Then we have another group for the second text after the dot. And what do we do with those groups? We get the description text from this resource bundle that we saw before. So the text with the item restores mana, And then in this description, we replace with our regular expression, which basically goes through the entire text and checks if it finds something that matches this regular expression. And then you get back so-called group values. And the first group is then the text before the dot. And the second group is then the text after the dot. So this is how it's working. So the first group in our case would be then this stat that we have seen. And the second group would be then mana in our case. So here again, first text is stat. And the second text would be mana. And with that specific regular expression, I can then simply replace any status attribute with whatever status attribute the entity then has. Like in this example, we use mana, so we read it from the mana status and convert it to an integer. If we have magical evasion, it would convert it to a percentage-based value, physical evasion, and so on. And yeah, this specific functionality might help me in the future if I also need to replace other things. So maybe not just only status attributes. There could be something different in our game world. I don't know what else besides status you have. I don't know. So for example, a size or something, or I don't know, boundary and then dots width or anything like that. So basically it's, I would say, a little bit more flexible to do that with the regular expression and then just add certain text to my resource bundle descriptions or texts and then replace it with that. So that was working quite well. Yeah, is there anything else? I think that's it. That's everything that I wanted to show you. I will now quickly have a look why I got this error before. I think I already know it because I introduced a new component which I took care of correctly in the shop UI test. There I want to show you something actually. So the shop UI test, I took care of that. The entities are correctly created, but I think in the real game, I forgot to add this item component to the real items yet. But let me see. One last thing that I wanted to show you, because as you also know from the tutorial series, I always had a little bit of a problem. It was not so easy for me to define a scene2D layout. This is always a super time-consuming task for me. And I think in the Quilly Jumper streaming project, I actually started to use a skin composer, but I did not use the scene manager, if I remember correctly. And the scene manager is actually a super useful tool. So I will link the link to Skin Composer in the video description below if you are interested. So let me open up the skin file or the Skin Composer file for Masamune at the moment, where I have the different styles for the different classes. For a button, for a label, I have certain styles. I have the default style, I have a dialogue content, I have a dialogue image caption. You always have the preview of the skin directly here. You can actually also create custom classes, like the dialogue in Masamune has certain configuration things like a dialogue background, an image frame, and you see all of that in my opinion, very useful preview things. So that is one part of Skin Composer. But the part that I want to show you is actually the so-called Scene Composer, which is part of that. And there you see already the shop user interface that I came up with. But let me clear the entire scene. So normally you start from an empty scene where you just have the group, which is normally the root actor of the scene2D stage. And then you can start by, for example, adding a table to it with a certain amount of cells. Let's make, for example, a 2x2 layout. There you see already the different cells. So we have cell 0, 0, 1, 0, da, da, da. You can also just click up here in the scene to select certain things. And then let's say the top left cell, just to show you something, would be a label. It has the style of the, I don't know, dialogue option. Then we have some demo text that we want to show you here. We can change the color to, I don't know, green, for example. We have a text alignment center, so you can play around here with the layout. At the top right here, let's add another widget, which would be, I don't know, for example, an image with a drawable that we have here as well. I don't know, the merchant drawable. And what is then also very nice and which helps me personally a lot is then the playing around with a cell itself. So normally I have a better understanding now, but in the past I sometimes simply did not understand when I need to expand, when do I need to fill, what is the difference with that. And with the Scene Composer, you get the feedback directly. So for example, if we expand here now on the x-axis, you see that the cell simply expands now the entire row that it has available, of course considering still the space of the cell which is to the left. And the image is now, the image itself, let me select that, is still just this small piece here in the middle. It's centered. In the cell, we could, for example, say the alignment left, then the image is on the left, right, then it is on the right, and yeah, we had it in the center. And now what would happen when we say fill in addition? Fill now means that the image itself, so the actor is now filling up the entire space as well. And in that specific case, it's currently just stretching everything. That's the scaling option of the image. We could say here none, then it still remains like this, or I don't know, fill X, I think, then it's still stretching or something and it goes overboard. So in short, you can play around here with Scene2D quite nicely. You get immediate feedback, how things look like. You see what is happening when you expand or fill, when you add some padding here as well. I don't know, let's add some padding to the left. You already see here that there's a little bit of gap now between those two cells. And that is really, really useful and helps me a lot with designing the different scene 2D layouts. And in the end, what I do is then that I click on export, I think. Exactly. And then you can copy the content of this scene to the clipboard. And back then, if I am in any class, normally in a view class, I just paste it. And then I convert whatever I get here to the libktx extensions and DSL with Scene2D. And there are a couple of things that you just don't need, because a stage you would normally have, the skin you also have, the input processor you are normally also setting, so that simply can be removed. And then you just have that here. And then I just convert it to the, in my opinion, nicer Kotlin syntax, which would be in this case something like we have a table, then we have set, or is it just called fill parent then in Kotlin to true, and then I remove those two lines. Then I have, for example, a label with the text demo, then I think the skin is first, I don't know, and the style dialog option. Ta-da, then this line is gone. Then I have here a set alignment, which is align center, and so on and so forth. So with that, I then simply convert whatever I get from Scene Composer and convert it to the Kotlin style. That is currently my workflow for user interfaces. And also, as you have seen before, I always I usually now always start with a test for the user interface and then just play around with it until it looks good and the layout is where I want it to be. And yeah, the functionality itself with clicking and so on is simply working. And then when the test is working, then I port the user interface to the real game. This is my current approach and current workflow. And in my opinion, it's way better than what I did in the past. And again, shout out to the guy who made this Skin Composer and Scene Composer tool. His name is Releus or something, if I remember correctly. Really great stuff what he did there. Thanks a lot. Good, and that's it. Thanks for watching and have a nice rest of the evening. Bye bye.